Hi, I'm Nancy Bell from Oshkosh Public Library, and this is Book Buzz, where I'll take one book that's recently been getting a lot of buzz on bestsellers lists, review sites, social media, or anything else. I'll break it down into definable elements, and I'll suggest 3 books that have similar themes, writing styles, characters, and overall general vibes. So this year, for at least January and February, I'm actually doing 2 books that have just come out this month. So the book we're talking about today is Threadneedle by Cari Thomas. It was published in the UK in 2021, but just came over the pond this year in 2023 and has just been released. So Threadneedle, it's told from the perspective of 16-year-old Anna, who we quickly discover is an orphan who lives with her disciplinarian Aunt Vivian. She's an aunt who has rigorously warned Anna about the dangers of magic, and she belongs to a coven called Binders, who believe that magical abilities should literally be bound away as a form of self-protection from the witch hunting of the past. But our girl Anna, she's always wanted to believe in the wonders of magic, and when her mother's best friend visits with a daughter of the same age, Anna begins questioning everything her aunt ingrained in her. So let's go ahead and break down these elements. So first and foremost, this is a young adult novel. The main character and most of the characters overall are in their teen years, and this story really delves into their troubles at school and their issues with authority, like parents and teachers, and in this book, the entire establishment of like magic and covens. This is a really character-driven book. So, like I said, I actually read the advanced reader copy of this book, and the plot is kind of meandering. There's not really as much like action that you might think with a magical novel, but the characters, especially the 3 main characters with Anna, Effie, and Attis, are beautifully complex, and their struggles and growth is more of the focal point of the story than any action that happens. It's actually really suspenseful. You know, there's mysteries and secrets and all of these unknowns about the magical world that we are learning, and Anna is also learning because she was so sheltered by her aunt. And so it really builds up to this beautiful reveal. This is also an urban fantasy story, so it is set in contemporary London. So there are real places that are mentioned in the book, but those places are weaved together with these hidden in plain sight magical world locations. Which brings me to the next point of this book, which is it has such great world building. It's this creatively constructed setting that goes beyond, even just the concept of like, oh, magic exists in the regular world. It really dives into these different facets of magic, like the language of your magic casting, potions, plants, covens. And so it really builds upon more than just that urban setting and the belief of magic. And this is also the first book in a series. The series is called The Language of Magic. I believe the first book has already been published and released again in the UK, so we're going to have to wait a year or so before we get the next one in the United States similar to this one. So keep an eye out if you have enjoyed hearing about this book. There should be others in the series coming out, and hopefully they reach the same level of excellence that this one did. So those are the elements that I'm going to be looking for in a read-alike for Threadneedle. So first up, we have Graceling by Kristen Cashore. Graceling by Kristen Cashore. So in this land of 7 kingdoms, people who are born with 2 different colored eyes actually identify them as something else, as gracelings, people with special talents. It can take a lifetime to identify what your specific grace is. But for Katsa, our main character, her grace was made known at the age of 8. When a man attempted to grope her, she discovered her talent for killing. So by 18 years old, she has become the king's main henchwoman. She is dispatched to make subjects obey, a job she despises. She secretly works in the shadows, leading a secret council to work against corrupt power. And on one of these missions, she rescues a kidnapped royal and is pulled into a tangled web of political intrigue that she wasn't prepared for. sip of tea before we start. So let's look at these elements. So this is absolutely another young adult novel. There are younger characters. I'm not totally sure all of their ages, but as I said, Katza is actually 18 roundabouts throughout the course of the novel. But they're all going through this period of growth and discovering who they are, and specifically struggling with the talents that they're born with. Again, we have really complex characters who have these in-depth histories and motivations that unfold during this very intricately plotted story, which is, again, full of mysteries and secrets that are wonderfully all intertwined. And it really, builds into a very suspenseful reveal. It's really action-packed, actually, this one. There are fight scenes and secret missions. So there's like hand-to-hand combat and things like that that make it really fast-paced in certain parts of it, and it's an absolute delight to read them. Sometimes, fight scenes and stuff like that in books can get really bogged down, but it's wonderfully written. In addition to that, the world building in here is beautiful. It's an entirely other world, and with these imaginative graces, and it goes really deep into the political intrigue with history between these different kingdoms and the hierarchy and bureaucracy and how they really relate to our characters themselves. And then this is actually the first book in the Graceling series, and I believe that it is a total of 5 books in that series. So for all of those reasons, I think it's a beautiful read-alike for Threadneedle, or something you can just read instead of Threadneedle if that so catches your fancy. Our next book is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. 200 years in the aftermath of a war between gods and men, a young man dreams of a city known only as Weep. Our main character, Laszlo Strange, is a foundling. He's now 20 years old and works in the Great Library of Zosma as a junior librarian to help other scholars with their own work. He's still fixated with the city of Weep, and he uses his position to search for scraps of information and even teaches himself its lost language from the books in the library. When a group of warriors come to the library from this mythical city, Laszlo jumps at the opportunity to seize his dream and visit the city of Weep for himself. Okay, so Laszlo is actually 20 years old, but there are also younger characters in the book. One of the other main characters, I believe, is only 16 or 17. So it's also, the younger characters still going through this period of growth and discovering who they are and their place in the world. Really complex characters in here who have their individual side stories. Their own histories and motivations are unfolding. Also really intricately plotted, this book. Some of the side stories don't even necessarily seem connected until all of a sudden they are, and it's this intricate web that is kind of connected somehow, and it's beautiful to withhold when you read it all together. I remember when I read it, I was shocked at some of the pieces that did connect, and I had not put them together, which is always a great surprise for me when I'm reading books. I feel like I've read so many things at this point that I can kind of see where the plot points are and piece things together, but I was just beautifully surprised by this one. This book also has fantastic world building. This world has rich history and lore, gods that really existed, wars 200 years ago that they explain a little bit in the past, and they actively affect the present. It's truly this magnificent transportation to a totally new world that we haven't seen before. And this one is the first book in a duology, so there's only 2 books, and the second book is The Muse of Nightmares. So this book and this series will probably be a great read-alike if you like Threadneedle, or if that sounds like something that would interest you. And last up is a personal high favorite of mine, The Young Elites by Marie Lu. A deadly illness ravaged the country of Quneitra. The blood fever wiped out infected adults, and the child survivors were permanently scarred by it. But some of these child survivors mutated and created powerful, sometimes lethal powers. All of these child survivors are called Malfetos, and they are persecuted, and the mutants called Young Elites are the real targets of this persecution. Adelina Amotoru is one of these children, forever changed by the blood fever. And she only realizes that she is one of these young elites after a confrontation with her abusive father, where a tragic accident occurs. She is then taken into custody by the Inquisition, the government group who is hunting Malfettos. But she is then rescued by a masked man. And she is brought into this conflict where both the rebels and the Inquisition want to use her and her powers, and she needs to choose a side to save herself and her sister. I'm really biased about this one because I absolutely adore it, and I say that anyone and everyone should read it. It's so beautifully written. This is also, again, a young adult novel. I believe the characters are teenagers. I'm not sure that the age is actually ever discussed, but regardless, this is a very much coming-of-age story at its heart, but it does have a bunch of political intrigue, rebellion, and the addition of magic. Again, really complex characters. This book, similar to Threadneedle, kind of goes into the darker side of magic. It's not all, rainbows and happy endings. Adelina herself is a very dark character who went through some trauma from her abusive father and is a very vengeful person. So seeing her character growth, even if it is going towards that dark side or maybe towards the light, is a fascinating read. And it does go towards this intricate plot, where the push-pull between the rebels and the government and her own motivations creates just this whirlstorm of intricate plotting. The world building is gorgeous. It's a lush fantasy setting. It kind of mixes with, what we know, while having that added magical feel to it. It feels like a very real and possible magical Renaissance Italy. You've got to read it to know what I'm talking about. This is actually the first book in a 3-book series, and each book is fantastic. So this one is almost like an introduction to the entire world and the darkness within Adelina, possibly. And you get to know each of the characters more in depth and see where Adelina will eventually fall by the end of the 3rd book. And those are the 3 Readalikes I have for you today. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to the library's YouTube channel for more content. A video like this will be coming out every month in the year of 2023. If you have any suggestions or questions, please go ahead and leave a comment, or you can always get a hold of me at the library reference desk, which I'll leave a link to down below. Thank you so much for watching, and let's all get back to reading.